Alright guys, figured I'd do a walk around video for you. This is my 1973 Chevy Nova SS Custom. It's got a 350 engine, still has a 350 engine. Give you a little preview of the interior, things I've done to it since I've owned it. New carpet, put an AEM air fuel gauge in it. Gauge cluster for volts and temperature and oil pressure. My glove box got signed by a bunch of guys from Hot Rod Power Tour. You guys will recognize pretty much all these names. You got Dulcich, Freiberger, and Finnegan, so the roadkill guys. Derek from Vice Grip Garage, he's a super cool guy. Kevin from Junkyard Digs. Luke, Thunderhead 289. Eric the Car Guy, Lucky Costa, and Dylan McCool. Still a couple folks I want to get on there that I haven't got yet. Hopefully I'll get to meet them and get them to sign my glove box. Outside, the guy that owned it put a really nice vinyl top on it before I got it. So this vinyl top's in really good shape. It's in really good shape. Really makes the car. I painted the hood black to match. You guys might be wondering why I have a cowl induction emblems on the hood. That's because it has functioning cowl induction. It's not like the Chevelles that they came with it, but this aftermarket hood has a scoop, airtight seal, and I made this myself. I made this tray, put the foam up here, give it an airtight seal so it gets cold air. So what have I done in here? It's almost easier to tell you what I haven't done. The only thing that really hasn't been touched by me is the engine itself, the short block of the engine. I've put new intake gaskets on, but I haven't had the engine apart at all. Put new headers on it, wrapped them, valve cover gaskets, water pump, new radiator, and I made this fan shroud and I put dual electric fans on it. I've redone the brakes and master cylinder, new hoses, this fuel pressure regulator, put a carburetor spacer on there. It's got an Edelbrock 600 CFM carb. What else have I done? Those bottles are new. The old ones were really yellow, and these are pretty cheap. It makes the engine look better. Yeah, it runs pretty good. It's a Smog engine. It doesn't have Vortec heads or aluminum heads or anything real expensive, but it does run 14s in the quarter without manually shifting the auto and without drag slicks. So take that as you will. It's not the fastest car in the world, but it does run 14s with maybe a high 13 in there with drag slicks and a launch and the right conditions, maybe manually shifting it. But it runs pretty good, goes down the road pretty good. I like it, and first thing people ask is whether or not I'm going to paint it. I don't want to paint it. I mean, it's got a lot of scratches. You can see these scratches. I think they just add character. You can see the primer coming through underneath. This car was cared for, though. I mean, believe it or not, it's been cared for because the guy who owned it bought it off somebody else. It does have a cam. That's not the original engine. Somebody really wanted to make this thing a race car. It's got a shift kit. Definitely, it shifts hard. So it was somebody's racer back in the day. I don't know who owned it before the older guy that I bought it off of, but back in the day, this thing was probably pretty fast for what it was with the Smog engine and running 14s. I think it's probably got like 343 gears in it, maybe 373 gears in it, because it runs like 3,000 RPM at 60 miles per hour. It does have a little bit of rust when you start really looking. I had a guy put rocker panels on for me because these were all eaten through, and I've done a little bit of Bondo fixing on some things to make it look good from about 10 feet away, like this spot here. had a hole in it. And there was a few other spots in the doors that I fixed from like 10 feet away. They look all right, and it's things like 12 shades of blue, which I don't really care about because you can see the paint is really messed up. There was a big dent here, right here. This guy had like ½ an inch of Bondo right here, which I sanded down. It was all flaky and pitted, and I sanded it down and straightened it out and painted it, and it looks like 100 times better than what the guy who owned it had there. What else? Oh, it's got a bumper tuck. 72 is the last year for the short bumpers, so they changed the bumpers in 73. So this bumper should stick out, right? But as you can see, it's tucked. So it's tucked like a 72, and the front bumper is untucked. It's an untucked bumper, see? It's got a little bit of sticking out, and it's got this piece in here that is like a spacer. But I like it. I think the rear being tucked gives it that squatty look, but the front doesn't really detract from it. I think the front with the bumper sticking out looks almost better than if it was tucked, in my opinion. So I think that's about it, guys. I mean, there's a lot of little stuff I've done. I did body mount bushings on it. Had the windshield replaced. Things like that. Took the doors apart to make sure the windows worked better and went up and down. Put traction bars on it, and yes, I know they're not where the snubber is supposed to be, but trying to find some that actually fit, that go to the snubber, couldn't find any, or I couldn't find any that were cheap. And I'm not putting down enough power to really bend that leaf spring, so I'm not too worried about it. If it does bend the leaf spring, then I'll just put new leaf springs in and get new traction bars. But right now I'm going to leave it. These traction bars did help a lot with the wheel hop. This thing had crazy wheel hop. It does have posi too, so if you guys are wondering if it has posi, it's definitely a posi car. It does 2-wheel peels. Like I said, people did care about it. This thing has a chrome diff cover, which is old and crusty. And I had the exhaust changed, so it dumps before the axle. It does save a little weight, and it does sound good. Just had a local shop do it. So it dumps like right there before the axle. And it's got a H-pipe crossover. So I think that's about it, guys. Hope you guys like my car. It's pretty cool. Get a lot of looks in it.